Hey, Good Sam, this is Pastor Zach with their Tuesday recap. This past Sunday, we looked at Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. We looked back at chapter 1 to see where Ruth and Naomi was coming from, how they were coming from Moab back to Bethlehem after being gone for 10 years. We talked about the trials and the tribulations, the hard things that Naomi had to overcome, coming back to a land that was not prepared for them, to a home that was empty and falling apart most likely. We talked about how when they came back, there was no guarantee that they would have anyone to look after them. We also looked at Ruth, how she was both poor, a foreigner, and a widow, and how being poor, a foreigner, and a widow in that time was a hard thing to overcome. Even though there were laws in the Old Testament protecting those people, there was no guarantee that people were following those rules in the time of Judges. And we looked at how God showed his providence, his protective care over Ruth and Naomi. First, by Ruth showing up the field owned by Boaz. Of all the fields, of all the places around Bethlehem, she chose a field which Boaz was at, even a field that he was going to visit that morning. It was something of providence that she was allowed to work there. The foreman said, yes, you can glean in these fields. And remember, gleaning is the picking up of wheat that had fallen out of the harvester's hand. It was backbreaking work, and Naomi and Ruth needed it to survive. Ruth stepped into an uncomfortable role. Boaz welcomed Ruth into their field. He welcomed her and provided for her needs. He elevated her from being just a widow, poor and a foreigner, to being a servant in his household, saying, here, stay with my women and my workers, and they will take care of you. We read that she was provided with water and shelter. And later on, in the next part of chapter 2, we also see that Boaz invites her to the table to provide food for her, reminding you that she had just come from out of town with nothing. And then we looked at ourselves. We looked at how God, through the story of Ruth, shows that he shows up in the ways not that we expect, but the ways that we need. That God's providence shows up in the way that, not that we expect, but the way that we need. And sometimes we expect God to show up in a way, and it's just not the right way. It's not the best way for God to show up and care for our needs. He shows up in a different way through different people. And lastly, we talked about how can we be a part of God's providence to our communities. What if we were a community that celebrated the good things God is doing? What if we took time in our daily lives to say, hey, this is what God is doing, and this is how I can go and help others. We hope that you join us for Wednesday Night Live this week. We're continuing our walk through Ruth. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. We're going to be looking at the characteristics of both Ruth and Boaz. Hope to see you soon, either on Wednesday or this coming Sunday. Blessings.